I should have seen it coming. Looking back now, the red flags were everywhere, waving frantically in my face like warning signals I chose to ignore because I was so caught up in the idea of marriage, of building a life with someone I thought loved me as much as I loved her. Jessica and I had been together for 2 years, engaged for 6 months. She was beautiful, successful, charming when she wanted to be. A marketing director at a tech startup, the kind of woman who commanded attention when she walked into a room. I was proud to be with her, proud that she'd chosen me out of all the guys who'd pursued her over the years. Maybe that was part of the problem. I was so grateful she'd chosen me that I overlooked the ways she made me feel small, the casual cruelties disguised as jokes, the subtle undermining of my confidence that had become routine in our relationship. The first major red flag was her phone. Jessica was constantly on it, during dinner, during movies, even during conversations that I thought were important. When I mentioned it bothered me, she'd roll her eyes and say I was being needy or controlling. But it was the late-night texting that really got to me. After we'd go to bed, I'd lie there listening to the constant buzz of notifications, watching the blue glow illuminate her face as she typed response after response to someone who was apparently more interesting than sleeping next to her fiancé. Work stuff, she'd say when I asked about it. Crisis management, you know how it is. Except I'd worked in tech too, and I knew that marketing crises at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday were pretty rare. The breaking point came on a Thursday night in October. We'd just finished watching a movie. Or rather, I'd watched a movie while Jessica divided her attention between the screen and her phone. As the credits rolled, her phone buzzed again, and again, and again. I glanced over and saw the name on her screen. Derek. The same Derek who'd been texting her every night for weeks. "Who's Derek?" I asked casually, trying to keep any accusation out of my voice. Jessica's response was immediate and defensive. "Just a friend from work." "He texts you a lot for a work friend." "It's not a lot. It's normal communication between colleagues." "At 11 o'clock at night?" Jessica set down her phone and turned to face me with an expression I'd never seen before, something between annoyance and contempt. "Are you seriously going to start this jealousy thing, Michael? Because it's really not attractive." "I'm not jealous. I'm just curious about who's texting my fiancé every single night." "If you must know, Derek is my ex-boyfriend from college. We're friends now, adult friends who can have conversations without it being some big dramatic thing." The casual way she said it, like it was no big deal that she'd been hiding the identity of her late-night text buddy, hit me harder than if she'd been screaming. "Your ex-boyfriend texts you every night and you didn't think to mention that?" Jessica laughed. Actually laughed, like I'd just told her the most amusing joke she'd heard all week. "Michael, you're being ridiculous. Derek and I are friends. That's it. He's going through a rough patch with work and I'm being supportive. You know, like friends do. Friends who used to sleep together. That was years ago. We're different people now." "Then why didn't you tell me who he was?" "Because I knew you'd react exactly like this, all insecure and possessive and weird about it." The conversation escalated from there, with Jessica becoming increasingly dismissive of my concerns, and me becoming increasingly frustrated with her refusal to acknowledge that her behavior was inappropriate. Finally, after 20 minutes of circular arguments and mounting tension, I tried one more time to explain how I felt. "Jessica, I'm not trying to be controlling. I just think that if we're going to be married, we should be honest with each other about things like this. If Derek is important to you as a friend, I'd like to know about it. I'd like to meet him. I just want to understand what's going on." Jessica stared at me for a long moment, and then something shifted in her expression. The defensive annoyance was replaced by something colder, more calculating. "You know what, Michael?" she said, her voice taking on a tone I'd never heard before. "You're easy to replace. Don't get it twisted." The words hit me like a physical blow. I felt my chest tighten and my stomach drop as the full meaning of what she'd said sank in. "What did you just say?" "You heard me. You're acting like you're some irreplaceable catch, but the truth is, you're not. There are plenty of guys out there who would be thrilled to be with me. Guys who wouldn't interrogate me about every text message or make me feel guilty for having friends." She was warming up now, the cruelty coming easier as she saw how much her words were affecting me. I could walk away from this relationship tomorrow and have a new boyfriend within a week. So maybe think about that before you start making demands about who I can and can't talk to. I sat there in stunned silence, processing the fact that the woman I was planning to marry had just told me I was disposable, replaceable, essentially, worthless in the grand scheme of her life. But what hurt most wasn't just the words themselves. It was the casual way she'd said them, like she'd been thinking this for a while and was just now bothering to let me know. I could have fought back. I could have yelled or made threats or demanded apologies. Instead, I felt something cold and final settle in my chest. "You're right," I said quietly. "I'll remember that." Jessica smiled, clearly thinking she'd won the argument and put me in my place. "Good. Now can we please drop this whole thing and go to bed? I have an early meeting tomorrow." She picked up her phone and started texting Derek again, as if our entire conversation had been nothing more than a minor inconvenience in her evening routine. I went to bed that night knowing that my engagement was over. Not because of Derek, not because of the texting, but because of those 6 words. "You're easy to replace. Don't get it twisted." Jessica had shown me exactly what she thought of me, of our relationship, of our future together. She'd made it clear that I was a convenience rather than a choice, a placeholder rather than a partner. As I lay there listening to her phone buzz with messages from her ex-boyfriend, I began planning my exit from a relationship that I now understood had never been what I thought it was. But I wasn't going to give Jessica the satisfaction of a messy breakup or dramatic confrontation. If she thought I was easy to replace, I was going to show her exactly how right she was, just not in the way she expected. The next morning, Jessica acted like nothing had happened. She made coffee, kissed me goodbye, and headed off to work as if she hadn't spent the previous evening telling me how replaceable I was. The casual dismissal of our argument was almost worse than the argument itself. It showed how little impact the conversation had on her, how insignificant my feelings were in her world. I took a personal day from work and spent the morning sitting in our apartment, looking at everything we'd built together and trying to figure out how to dismantle it without destroying myself in the process. The engagement ring on Jessica's nightstand caught my eye. A 2-carat diamond that had cost me 3 months' salary, purchased back when I thought we were building something permanent together. Now it just looked like evidence of how badly I'd misread the situation. I made my first call to my best friend Marcus, someone I'd known since college who'd been skeptical of Jessica from the beginning. "She said you were easy to replace?" Marcus asked after I'd explained the previous night's conversation. Those were her exact words. "Jesus, Mike. I'm sorry, man. That's brutal." The thing is, she was right. From her perspective, I probably am easy to replace. I've been so focused on making her happy, on being the perfect boyfriend and fiancé, that I've lost sight of what I actually bring to the relationship. "You bring a lot, Mike. She's just too self-absorbed to see it." Maybe. But either way, I can't marry someone who sees me as disposable. So, what are you going to do? I'm going to take her advice. I'm going to show her exactly how easy I am to replace. The first step was financial. Jessica and I had been planning an expensive wedding, the kind of elaborate celebration that would look perfect on social media and impress all her friends. I'd been paying for most of it, despite her higher salary, because she'd convinced me that it was traditional for the groom's family to handle the major expenses. I spent the afternoon calling vendors and canceling everything I could. The venue, the caterer, the photographer, the florist, all of it. Some deposits were refundable, others weren't, but I was willing to eat the cost to avoid the much larger expense of a wedding to someone who didn't respect me. "Sir, I have to ask," said the wedding planner when I called to cancel our contract. "Is everything all right? You seem to have put a lot of thought into these arrangements." "Everything's fine," I said. "We've just decided to go in a different direction." "A different direction? Let's call it a simplified approach to the future." The second step was reconnection. Over the past 2 years with Jessica, I'd gradually lost touch with friends and family members who hadn't fit into her vision of our social circle. She'd found reasons to avoid spending time with people she considered beneath us, and I'd gone along with it to keep the peace. Now I started reaching out to those people, rekindling relationships that I'd let atrophy for the sake of my relationship with someone who saw me as replaceable. The most interesting conversation was with Emma Rodriguez, Jessica's cousin who worked as a nurse at the local hospital. Emma and I had always gotten along well, but Jessica had discouraged our friendship because she thought Emma was too dramatic and always causing family problems. "Mike," Emma said when I called her, "I haven't heard from you in months. How are things?" "Complicated," I admitted. "Emma, can I ask you something? You know Jessica better than almost anyone. What's your honest opinion of our relationship?" There was a long pause before Emma answered. "Mike, I love Jessica, but can I be honest with you? Please. I've never understood what she sees in you." The words stung until Emma continued. "I mean, you're kind, funny, successful, genuinely caring about other people. Jessica is, well, she's my cousin and I love her, but she's always been kind of selfish. She dates guys who worship her, and then she gets bored with them because they don't challenge her. So you think I'm too good for her? I think you deserve someone who appreciates what you bring to a relationship instead of taking it for granted." That conversation led to others. Emma invited me to a dinner party the following weekend, where I met her friends, people who seemed genuinely interested in getting to know me rather than evaluating whether I was worthy of their attention. One of those friends was Sarah Chen, a graphic designer who'd recently moved to the city from San Francisco. Sarah was beautiful in a completely different way than Jessica. Natural, unpretentious, with the kind of warm smile that made you feel comfortable immediately. "So you're Jessica's fiancé," Sarah said when Emma introduced us. "I've heard a lot about you. All good things, I hope." Sarah glanced at Emma with an expression I couldn't quite read. "Interesting things." We talked for most of the evening, and I found myself enjoying a conversation with a woman for the first time in months. Sarah was intelligent without being condescending, funny without being cruel, engaged without being demanding. She made me remember what it felt like to talk to someone who actually wanted to hear what I had to say. "Mike," Sarah said as the evening was winding down, "I hope this doesn't sound too forward, but would you like to have coffee sometime? I'm new to the city and I could use a friend who knows the good places." I hesitated, thinking about Jessica and our engagement and the complications of having coffee with another woman. Then I remembered Jessica's words. "You're easy to replace." "I'd like that," I said. "How about Saturday afternoon?" "Perfect." As I drove home that night, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Excitement about spending time with someone who seemed to genuinely enjoy my company. Jessica was already asleep when I got home, her phone on the nightstand still showing unread messages from Derek. I looked at her sleeping face and tried to remember when I'd last felt truly happy in her presence, when I'd last felt valued rather than tolerated. I couldn't remember. Over the next week, I had coffee with Sarah twice and dinner once. Each time, I found myself more impressed by her intelligence, her kindness, her genuine interest in other people. She asked about my work, my family, my hobbies, things Jessica had stopped caring about months ago. "You seem different," Jessica said one evening as we made dinner together. "More, I don't know, confident." "Do I?" "Yeah, it's nice. I like it when you're not all needy and insecure." The irony was perfect. I was feeling more confident because I was spending time with someone who made me feel valuable, while Jessica thought my improved mood was the result of accepting her low opinion of me. "I've been thinking about what you said the other night," I told her, "about being easy to replace." Jessica looked up from the vegetables she was chopping, her expression wary. "And you were right. I had been taking our relationship for granted, assuming that just because we were engaged, we were stuck with each other no matter how we treated each other." Jessica relaxed, clearly thinking I was about to apologize and promise to be less demanding about her friendship with Derek. "I'm glad you see it that way," she said. "Relationships require work from both people, and sometimes that means not getting jealous about every little thing." Exactly. We both deserve to be with people who truly want to be with us, not people who feel obligated or trapped. Right. What Jessica didn't know was that I'd already found someone who made me feel wanted rather than tolerated. Sarah and I had moved beyond casual coffee dates to genuine emotional connection. She made me laugh, challenged my ideas, supported my goals, and showed genuine affection for who I was rather than trying to change me into someone else. More importantly, She made me realize that Jessica's treatment of me wasn't normal or acceptable. Sarah listened when I talked, remembered things I told her, showed interest in my thoughts and feelings. She made me understand that I deserved to be with someone who saw me as irreplaceable rather than convenient. 2 weeks after Jessica had told me I was easy to replace, I made the decision that would change both our lives forever. Jessica's family reunion was coming up the following weekend. It was an annual tradition that brought together cousins, aunts, uncles, and family friends for a long weekend of food, games, and catching up. Jessica had been looking forward to it for months, excited to show off her engagement ring and talk about our wedding plans with relatives who hadn't seen her since the previous year. "I can't wait for everyone to meet you properly," she'd said when the invitation arrived. "My family's going to love you." Now, looking at that invitation, I saw an opportunity to show Jessica exactly how easy she was to replace. I called Emma and asked if I could bring a guest to the reunion. "Of course," Emma said. "Who did you have in mind?" "Someone I think the family would really like to meet." "Anyone I know?" "Actually, yes. Sarah Chen from your dinner party." There was a pause, and then Emma's voice took on a tone of understanding and excitement. "Mike, that's going to be interesting." "I hope so." "Does Jessica know?" "Not yet. I want it to be a surprise." "Oh, it'll definitely be that." That evening, I asked Sarah if she'd like to accompany me to a family gathering. "It sounds lovely," she said, "but isn't this something you'd normally go to with Jessica?" "Jessica and I are taking a break from each other." It wasn't technically true yet, but it would be by the weekend. "Are you sure it's appropriate for me to be there?" "Sarah, I've never been more sure of anything in my life." Friday afternoon, I came home to find Jessica packing for the reunion, excited and chatty about seeing her family and introducing me to relatives I hadn't met yet. "I told everyone about the wedding plans," she said as she folded clothes into her suitcase. "My Aunt Maria is so excited to meet you. She keeps asking when we're going to have kids." I watched her pack, this woman who'd told me I was replaceable, who'd dismissed my feelings and mocked my concerns about her relationship with her ex-boyfriend. She was so confident in her power over me, so certain that I would continue to tolerate whatever treatment she chose to dish out. "Jessica," I said as she zipped up her suitcase, "we need to talk." "Can it wait until after the reunion? I want to get on the road before traffic gets bad." "Actually, it can't wait." Something in my tone made her stop and look at me properly for the first time in weeks. "What's wrong?" "I'm not going to the reunion with you." "What? Why not? Did something come up at work?" "No, nothing came up at work. I'm not going with you because we're not together anymore." Jessica stared at me for several seconds, clearly processing what I'd said. "We're not together? What does that mean?" "It means I'm breaking up with you. Our engagement is over." "Michael, what the hell are you talking about? You can't just break up with me 3 days before my family reunion. This is ridiculous. You told me I was easy to replace. I decided to take your advice. That was just... We were fighting. I didn't mean it literally." "Yes, you did. And you were right. I am easy to replace, just like you are." Jessica's face went through several emotions: confusion, disbelief, anger, and finally panic as she realized I was serious. "You can't do this, Michael. We're engaged. We have a wedding planned. We have a life together." We had a life together. Now we don't. This is about Derek, isn't it? You're still hung up on the texting thing. This is about you telling me I was disposable. This is about you treating me like a convenience rather than a partner. This is about me finally believing you when you showed me who you really are. Jessica tried several different approaches over the next hour: tears, anger, bargaining, threats. But my mind was made up. The woman who told me I was easy to replace was about to find out exactly how right she'd been. "Fine," she said finally, when she realized I wasn't going to change my mind. "But you're making a huge mistake. You'll never find anyone better than me." "We'll see," I said. As Jessica left for her family reunion, still convinced that I would come crawling back within a few days, I called Sarah to confirm our plans for the weekend. "Are you sure about this?" Sarah asked one more time. It's going to cause a lot of drama. I'm sure. Besides, drama was going to happen anyway. This way, at least it'll be interesting. Saturday evening, as Jessica was probably bragging to her relatives about her wonderful fiancé and their upcoming wedding, Sarah and I would walk into the reunion together. Jessica thought I was easy to replace. She was about to find out that I'd replaced her first. Saturday afternoon, as I prepared for what would either be the most satisfying or most disastrous evening of my life, I found myself surprisingly calm. The anxiety I'd expected to feel was replaced by a sense of clarity and purpose that I hadn't experienced in months. Sarah arrived at my apartment at 4 p.m., looking elegant in a navy blue dress that struck the perfect balance between casual and formal for a family gathering. She'd spent time thinking about how to present herself to Jessica's family, wanting to make a good impression while being authentic to who she was. "You look nervous," she said as I adjusted my tie for the third time. "I'm not nervous about seeing Jessica. I'm nervous about putting you in the middle of what's probably going to be a very awkward situation. Michael, I'm a grown woman who makes her own choices. I want to be here with you. Besides," she smiled, "Emma warned me that Jessica's family thrives on drama. Apparently, I'm just contributing to a proud tradition." The drive to the reunion venue, a rented community center in Jessica's hometown, gave us time to discuss strategy. Not that we needed much of a strategy beyond showing up together and letting the situation speak for itself. "What do you think Jessica will do when she sees us?" Sarah asked as we pulled into the parking lot. "Honestly, I have no idea. I've never seen her in a situation where she wasn't in complete control of the narrative." "Well, we're about to find out." The community center was decorated with balloons and streamers, the kind of cheerful family gathering atmosphere that would make our arrival either perfectly normal or completely explosive, depending on your perspective. Through the windows, I could see Jessica's extended family mingling, laughing, catching up with relatives they hadn't seen since the last reunion. Jessica was at the center of one group, animated and clearly holding court, probably regaling them with stories about her successful career and upcoming wedding. "Last chance to change your mind," I told Sarah as we sat in my car looking at the scene inside. "Not a chance," she replied, taking my hand. "Let's go show them what replacement looks like." Emma spotted us first as we walked through the front door. Her face lit up with barely contained excitement, and she immediately started making her way over to greet us. "Michael," she called out, loud enough to draw attention from several nearby family members. "I'm so glad you could make it. And Sarah, you look absolutely beautiful." The hug Emma gave me was genuine and warm, but I could see her eyes scanning the room to gauge reactions. Several of Jessica's aunts and uncles were looking our way with expressions of polite curiosity, clearly wondering who Sarah was and why she was with me instead of their niece. "Where's Jessica?" asked Maria, Jessica's aunt, who'd been particularly excited to meet me. "I thought you two would arrive together." "Jessica's around here somewhere," I said vaguely. "I'd like you to meet Sarah Chen." "Sarah, this is Maria, Jessica's aunt." Maria shook Sarah's hand politely, but I could see the confusion in her eyes. She was clearly trying to figure out the social dynamics of why Jessica's fiancé had brought another woman to the family reunion. "It's lovely to meet you," Sarah said warmly. "Emma has told me so much about Jessica's family." "How do you know Emma?" Maria asked, fishing for information. "We met through mutual friends," Sarah replied smoothly. "Emma's been wonderful about helping me meet people since I moved to the city." The conversation continued for several minutes, with more family members gradually joining our group. Each introduction followed the same pattern: polite curiosity about Sarah's presence, subtle questions about Jessica's whereabouts, and growing confusion about why I was there with someone else. But none of them wanted to ask the obvious questions directly, especially in front of Sarah, who was charming and gracious and clearly not someone they could be rude to without looking like jerks. "Michael." The voice that cut through our conversation was familiar and sharp. Jessica had spotted us from across the room and was making her way over, her face a carefully controlled mask that I knew concealed rising panic. She looked beautiful, as always. Jessica had dressed for the reunion like she was attending a magazine photo shoot, every detail of her appearance calculated to impress her relatives and reinforce her image as the successful, engaged career woman who'd landed the perfect life. Seeing her approach our group, with Sarah standing beside me looking radiant and confident, I felt the last traces of doubt about my decision disappear. This was exactly what needed to happen. "Hi, Jess," I said casually as she joined our circle. "You remember Sarah, don't you? From Emma's dinner party?" Jessica's smile was frozen in place, her eyes moving between Sarah and me as she tried to process what she was seeing. "Of course," Jessica said, her voice tight but controlled. "Sarah, what a surprise to see you here." "Michael invited me," Sarah replied simply. "I hope that's all right." The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken questions and growing realization. Jessica's family members were starting to understand that something was very wrong with the picture they were seeing, but none of them knew how to address it politely. "Could I speak with you privately, Michael?" Jessica asked, her composure starting to crack. "Of course." "Sarah, would you mind if Emma introduced you to some of the other family members? I'll just be a minute." "Take your time," Sarah said, squeezing my hand briefly before releasing it. Jessica led me toward a quiet corner of the room, her heels clicking sharply on the polished floor. When we were out of earshot of the others, she turned to face me with an expression of barely controlled fury. "What the hell is this, Michael? This is me taking your advice." "My advice? You told me I was easy to replace, so I replaced myself." Jessica stared at me, her mouth opening and closing as she struggled to find words. "You brought another woman to my family reunion? Are you insane?" "I brought my girlfriend to meet some people I care about. I thought you'd approve. You're always saying how important it is to be honest about relationships." "Your girlfriend? Michael, we're engaged." We were engaged. I broke up with you yesterday, remember?" "That was just a fight. You can't seriously think—" "Jessica, you told me I was replaceable. You were right, and so are you." The conversation was interrupted by Emma's voice calling across the room. "Everyone, dinner's ready." Jessica looked back at her family, all of whom were watching our interaction with growing interest and concern. Then she looked at Sarah, who was talking animatedly with Jessica's cousin Luis about something that was making them both laugh. "You can't do this to me," Jessica said, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Not here, not in front of my family. I'm not doing anything to you, Jessica. I'm just living my life with someone who actually wants to be with me. She doesn't even know you. I've spent 2 years with you, building a relationship, planning a future. You spent 2 years telling me how I wasn't good enough, how I was too needy, how easy I would be to replace. I finally decided to listen to you." Jessica tried several more times to convince me to leave with her, to discuss this privately, to postpone the inevitable confrontation until after the reunion. But I was done protecting her feelings at the expense of my own dignity. As we made our way to the dinner tables, Jessica was forced to watch her family members welcome Sarah warmly while shooting confused glances in her direction. The woman who'd been holding court an hour earlier, bragging about her perfect life and upcoming wedding, was now struggling to explain why her fiancé had arrived with someone else. "So, Michael," said Uncle Roberto as we took our seats, "when is the wedding?" "Jessica's been telling us it's going to be quite the celebration." I felt Jessica tense beside me, waiting to see how I would answer. "Actually, Roberto, there's been a change of plans. Jessica and I aren't getting married after all." The silence that followed was absolute. 20 family members stopped eating simultaneously and stared at us with expressions ranging from shock to fascination. "You're not getting married?" asked Aunt Carmen. "But Jessica said—" "Jessica says a lot of things," I replied calmly. "But sometimes people change their minds about what they want out of life." "When did this happen?" asked Maria. "Yesterday. We realized we wanted different things from a relationship." Jessica was sitting frozen beside me, clearly paralyzed by the public nature of the conversation and unsure how to respond without making the situation worse. "Well," said Emma, breaking the tension with perfect timing, "I think Sarah is absolutely lovely." "Michael, you seem very happy." "I am happy," I said, looking at Sarah across the table. Happier than I've been in a long time. The rest of dinner was a masterclass in family dynamics. Jessica's relatives politely included Sarah in conversations while shooting worried glances at Jessica, who was struggling to maintain her composure as her perfect reunion narrative crumbled around her. Sarah, meanwhile, was absolutely charming. She asked thoughtful questions about family history, complimented the food, and shared amusing stories about her own family that had everyone laughing. She was everything Jessica pretended to be. Genuinely warm, authentically interested in other people, naturally charismatic without being calculated about it. "Sarah," said Aunt Maria during dessert, "what do you do for work?" "I'm a graphic designer. I actually just finished a project for a children's hospital, designing a series of illustrations to help kids feel more comfortable during medical procedures." "That sounds wonderful," said Uncle Roberto. "It must be rewarding to do work that helps people." "It really is. I love being able to use creativity to make a positive impact." I watched Jessica's face as Sarah talked about her meaningful work, contrasting sharply with Jessica's usual complaints about her marketing job and how she was too good for most of her clients. After dinner, as people mingled and shared family photos, I found myself standing with Sarah and Emma near the dessert table, watching Jessica attempt damage control with various relatives. "She's been telling people you had a nervous breakdown," Emma said quietly. "Apparently you're going through some kind of quarter-life crisis and making impulsive decisions." "Is that her official story?" "That's her official story. The unofficial story, based on the looks people are giving you and Sarah, is that Jessica got exactly what she deserved." "What do you mean?" "Michael, Jessica's been awful to you for months. The whole family has noticed it. The way she talks to you, talks about you when you're not around, the constant criticism and dismissal. We've all been wondering when you'd finally stand up for yourself." "You have? We like you, Michael. You're kind, funny, respectful to our family. Jessica. Well, Jessica has always been difficult. Beautiful and successful, but difficult. Most of us figured you'd eventually get tired of being treated like a servant instead of a partner." As the evening wound down, Jessica made one final attempt to salvage the situation. She approached our group with a bright, fake smile and addressed Sarah directly. "Sarah, I hope you've enjoyed meeting everyone. It's been so educational having you here." "Everyone's been wonderful," Sarah replied graciously. "You have a lovely family." "They are lovely, and very protective of each other. I hope you understand that." The implication was clear. Sarah was an outsider who shouldn't get too comfortable with Jessica's family. But Emma stepped in before Sarah could respond. "Sarah, we were just talking about the lake house. You should come up with Michael next weekend. The whole family will be there for the end of summer barbecue." Jessica's face went white. "Emma, I think it's a great idea," said Aunt Maria, who'd overheard. "Sarah, you must come. We'd love to have you." "That's very kind," Sarah said, "but I wouldn't want to intrude on family time." "You wouldn't be intruding," said Uncle Roberto. "Michael's practically family anyway, and anyone who makes him smile like that is welcome anytime." As we prepared to leave, Jessica cornered me one last time by the coat check. "This isn't over, Michael. You can't just replace 2 years of our life together with some random woman you barely know." "I'm not replacing 2 years of our life, Jessica. I'm replacing 2 years of being told I wasn't good enough for you. She doesn't love you like I do." "No, she doesn't. She loves me better." The drive home was quiet, both Sarah and I processing what had just happened. As we pulled into my apartment complex, Sarah finally spoke. "That was intense. Are you okay?" "I know it was a lot to handle." "I'm fine." "But Michael, your ex-fiancé is going to make our lives difficult for a while." "Probably. Are you up for that?" Sarah leaned over and kissed me, a soft, sweet kiss that tasted like the beginning of something real. "I'm up for anything if it means I get to be with you." As we walked upstairs to my apartment, I thought about Jessica's words. "You're easy to replace." She'd been right about that. But what she'd failed to understand was that being easy to replace meant I had options, choices, the freedom to find someone who actually wanted to be with me. Jessica had thought she was warning me about my expendability. Instead, she'd shown me exactly how valuable I was to someone who knew how to appreciate what I offered. The fallout from the reunion began almost immediately. By Sunday morning, my phone was buzzing with texts from Jessica, alternating between desperate apologies and furious accusations, sometimes within the same message. Michael, I can't believe you embarrassed me like that in front of my family, but I forgive you. Let's talk about this like adults. You're making the biggest mistake of your life. Sarah is just a rebound. You know we belong together. My cousin Emma told everyone you're living together now? Are you seriously moving that fast with someone you barely know? The last text wasn't true. Sarah and I weren't living together, but I could see how Emma might have gotten that impression, or how Jessica might have interpreted things that way. The fact that Jessica was getting her information secondhand through family members who were clearly Team Sarah now was probably driving her crazy. I ignored the texts and focused on my actual life, which was remarkably peaceful without Jessica's constant criticism and drama. Sarah and I had breakfast together, read the newspaper, went for a walk in the park. Normal, relaxing activities that reminded me what it felt like to be with someone who actually enjoyed my company. She's not going to give up easily, Sarah said as we sat on a bench overlooking the lake. I could see it in her eyes last night. She's not used to losing. Are you worried? Not worried exactly, but I think we should be prepared for her to escalate things. Sarah was right. By Monday afternoon, Jessica had moved beyond texting and started calling my office, claiming to be my fiancé and demanding to speak with me about urgent wedding matters. My assistant, thankfully, had been briefed on the situation and politely told Jessica that I was unavailable. Tuesday brought Derek, Jessica's ex-boyfriend, to my apartment looking uncomfortable. Jessica asked me to come explain things between us, clear up misunderstandings, he said. Come in, Derek. He sat down reluctantly. Look, Jessica and I are just friends. Nothing romantic since college. She's stressed about work and the wedding, and I'm being supportive. That's nice of you. So you understand nothing inappropriate happened? Derek, if you were engaged and your fiancé texted her ex every night in bed next to you, how would you feel? And if she told you that you were easy to replace when you expressed concern? Derek went quiet. She said that to you? Those exact words. Jesus, I didn't know. The problem isn't you. It's that she treated my normal relationship concerns like unreasonable demands. Derek left more confused than when he arrived. Wednesday, Jessica showed up at Sarah's workplace demanding a woman-to-woman conversation. Sarah called afterward, amused. She offered me $5,000 to break up with you. What did you tell her? That if she had money to buy off other women, she should have spent it treating her fiancé better. She called me a gold digger. Thursday, Emma called. Jessica was telling family we were taking a break, and that Sarah was just a friend I brought to make her jealous. Nobody's buying it, Emma said. The family's thrilled you found someone who appreciates you. Friday brought Jessica's final attempt. She showed up dressed to impress, launching into a prepared speech about our history and connection. It's not about Sarah, I said. It's about you telling me I was replaceable. That was just words. I was angry. You said it because you believed it. And you were right. I am easy to replace. But so are you. The difference is, I found someone who makes me feel valued instead of tolerated. After trying tears, anger, and bargaining, Jessica finally gave up. Don't come crawling back when you realize your mistake. I won't, but think about why your family likes Sarah better than they've ever liked you. After she left, I called Sarah. How do you feel? She asked. Free. Completely 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 free.